Board of Finance monthly meeting for Thursday, February 18th, 2016. And item one on the agenda is public comments. Tony and Ellen have to leave to go to another meeting, so we're going to move the item 3 and item, let's see, 6 and item 6 up so they can leave, and then we'll have Amity make their presentation. So I'm going to make a motion that we move items 3 and 6 up to accommodate Tony and Ellen.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
You make their presentation. So I'm going to make a motion that we move items 3 and 6 up to accommodate Tony and Ellen.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want to go first or Tony go first?
Doesn't really matter. We'll get time.
Go ahead. Ellen, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'll be brief. I won't go through the usual list of activities that I present to you, but in that regard, the only one I do want to mention is that Adam Parsons was our person of the month for the month of February. So well deserved for everything he does, and I wanted to let you know that. The main thing I want to report to you about is some updates with respect to the Country Club of Woodbridge. The reason Tony and I are leaving early is because we have the first of 2 multi-commission meetings this evening where we will be updating the commissions on the various presentations and facts that we've presented to this board and to the Board of Selectmen, so that we can get any additional questions from those boards, answer those, and then we'll be well equipped to have our public presentations and public forums that will be coming after that. So thank you for your indulgence this evening. I want to also give you a couple of updates of information that's come in since our last joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. We have a letter from Attorney David Grogans at Cohen and Wolf with respect to the zoning issues. And I think zoning is one of the most important concerns that has come up about any changes at the Country Club of Woodbridge. Attorney Grogans, the letter is here. Karen has copies for all of you. You can pick it up at the end. And he has reassured us that should the town decide to allow cluster developments at the country club, we can put in adequate protections to assure that a future owner of the property could not then develop it differently from that. It would be deed restricted. And also that any such change would not serve as precedent for other parcels in town, provided it was all done appropriately, and he lays that out. So I think that is reassuring should the town want to go in that direction. We also asked architect David Stein to give us an overview of different options for the clubhouse. You know, we've had opinions about the disrepair in the clubhouse and that it would be best to take it down, but many people have asked what would it cost to refurbish the building or to mothball it till we decide. And so there again, he's looked at those 3 options, not in detail, but just to give us a ballpark figure, and Karen has his 1-page summary available for you. With respect to the pool, we've had residents come who support keeping the pool open. Someone told us there's been a petition. I have not seen it. I'm not no one I know has seen it, and that it was signed by 45 residents. And coincidentally, we have 45 Woodbridge families who were members of the pool this past summer. And when Tony and I looked at the numbers, it meant that when we look at the net numbers, the town is subsidizing each family's membership somewhere between $500 and $1,000. I don't know if you know more precisely, Tony.
No, it's about roughly that. Yeah.
Because some numbers are in play, but somewhere between $500 and $1,000. We then had someone come to us and say, well, if you're subsidizing to that extent for so few people, why not just make the pool free to Woodbridge residents? And Tony has done some calculations on that. We're working on it, and it appears that for probably about an additional $50,000 investment, we could make it free to all residents, at least for this summer. Now, it's not an easy thing to do. There are many drawbacks to it, but I did bring it up to the Board of Selectmen as we were discussing our budget recommendations to the Board of Finance. We will be having a special meeting before your next meeting to go over the details that Tony will be looking into, and we may or may not be recommending it. So I wanted to let you know that. And finally, as we, the Board of Selectmen unanimously approved budget recommendations to you with the caveat that the pool recommendation might change. But after that vote, the Republican members of our board said that they were, I think they're kind of uncomfortable with the budget process. They don't feel they really have the information they need. I think they may have been, they're relatively new to it, and I think it takes quite a bit of time to understand the budget and the budget process. They would like to have zero-based budgeting and some discussion of that. So I said I would have an all-day retreat, perhaps on a Saturday, where we could discuss the budget so people can fully understand what our charter allocates to the Board of Selectmen and what's the responsibility of the Board of Finance. Tony will spend more time with in-depth discussion about how we build our budget. And of course, when we do that, we would welcome your participation with us, and I'll let you know about it.
If you're going to do that, you should have someone there who understands what zero-based budgeting is. It's a term that's thrown around all the time. Oh, we're using zero-based budgeting. We did zero-based budgeting at Amity prior to Chip and Jack and probably Marie and Terry being there when we had the financial improprieties. Let me tell you, it was a horror show. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. And if they want to do zero-based budgeting, tell them they've got to devote a month of their time to coming to meetings, and because you're basically starting with nothing and you've got to justify every position, every paper clip. It's a horror show. So I think that term just gets thrown around all the time, and truly a zero-based budget is a very time-consuming. So I think you maybe should have somebody here who maybe could advise them what zero-based budgeting is.
Well, Tony's done some research, and I think he's prepared to speak about
I'm
that.
sure Tony could talk about it.
And I do think once we go through the details, I mean, perhaps there'll be some new ideas of things we can do differently, but certainly I've been very impressed since I've been first selectman with our budget process, with the Board of Finance, and certainly with Tony and the Finance Department. And I think once we go through it in a more in-depth manner, people will understand better what we do. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Okay. Tony.
Thank you.
Okay. For the monthly report through January of 2016, our budgetary surplus for the year is $188,000. That would bring our fund balance to a 9.51% of our annual projected expenditures for the year. Intergovernmental revenues are actually in a slight deficit of about a little under $20,000. That has changed since our last meeting. As you are aware, we did have a $69,000 award from FEMA. However, since then, the state has announced a second round of municipal aid cuts. The first round was a $16,000 cut in our pilot grant. The second round was a $42,000 cut in our ECS funding. And finally, the town has not received and will not receive $30,000 in a municipal aid adjustment grant, which was also supposed to happen this year. So that's almost a $90,000 state funding reductions. So therefore, it creates a deficit in that fund, in that account rather. So far in the governor's budget, those lower figures have been also put forth for next year. So budget to budget, it's actually a cut from fiscal year 16 to fiscal year 17 because even though the cut took place in 16. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Department revenues are almost flat. There's a slight surplus in department revenues. We do have some surpluses in conveyance taxes. That's $25,000 in building permits, about $45,000. Depending on what you do with the pool revenue here, deficit that I have here, I was at the time of this memo and the time of this projection, I was assuming that the pool would operate this summer as it did last summer. So that would be on a membership base, and therefore that's where this deficit came into play, $45,000. There's also a deficit in our SRO funding this year, as we did not receive all of the payments from one of the towns. That's the SRO that we have at Amity High School, and so I had to write that funding, that deficit off this year. So finally, in other financing sources, there's a $75,000 surplus in private duty revenues. In private duty revenues, that's mainly, this year happens to be tree work from UI. You've probably seen the tree trucks around. Mm-hmm. And so whenever you see a police officer out on the road, We charge a fee to UI, which covers not only the salary that's charged, but the benefits, the FICA match and any retirement matches, and also we charge a admin fee, and we charge a fee for the car. So that's what comes into play in this account. And expenditures. The general admin budget is a surplus of $30,000. That's a liability, property, and auto liability insurance savings that we had this year. The Parks Department is a surplus of $10,000. We had a vacant position for a portion of the year. Debt service has a surplus due to a refunding that the town did. That's $12,000. Waste management is projected to experience a surplus of $40,000. We had lower tonnage and tip fees, bulky waste, and mostly those two. A little bit recycling, but tip fees and bulky waste disposal fees. And finally, December 31st, the latest Woodbridge Board of Education report that we had was a deficit of $218,000. I don't know if you've heard anything since then. Have you been to a meeting since then? Yeah. Okay. So that's the figure I used in this report.
What's the reason for the 218?
Special ed.
Special education.
Special ed?
Yeah. Which is higher than the 218, but there were some savings on the operating budget that we used to cover it. So that's the net. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions for Tony? We do have the Woodbridge Board of Ed. I think it's 222, 432, if I'm looking at it correctly.
Yeah. This might have come in after this.
Just a reminder, we're going to be meeting on March 2nd.
That's it.
I believe that's a Wednesday,
Yes,
2 weeks from yesterday. All right?
correct. Yep.
And that's when we are going to be reviewing the Board of Selectmen's recommendations for the budget. And with their work, it's around a 5% increase. Is that correct?
The mill rate, yeah.
So,
Down from,
Almost 6.8.
so we did some more.
so when you get the packet, look it over, and then I don't know what we can do until we get that, but 5% seems tough. So we'll see what we can do. Anything else?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I think we all know, maybe we all don't know, but
Do you want to do that? I'm sorry, Matt, just one
What?
other question. Do you want to do the funding requests?
Yeah.
I don't know, do we
No.
need you for that? I
No,
looked at them.
okay.
No, they're pretty
No. All
straightforward.
right, yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay,
We didn't do our 5 minutes of public comments. We started early.
that's okay, go ahead. I said I'd allow it.
Hello, Roger Sherman, 530 Road, Woodbridge, Connecticut. And I was at the Board of Selectmen the other night, and I believe Ellen proposed that to have the Woodbridge residents be able to come to the pool for free this year, and I support her proposal. I think it would be a great thing for the people of the town to come and actually see the pool and see what a great resource it can be. And I fully support the proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You think she wants to make a public comment? Adrian, were you here for a public comment? Or you just?
No, I
you
just want to hear what's going on.
Okay, all right. Because we started a little early, so I'm allowing it.
And I'm late, I apologize.
No problem. Okay,
I wasn't supposed to be here, so
that's okay.
I just want to hear what's going on.
Okay. All right, with that, we're going to move back to item 2, which is the Amity Regional School District budget. And we have tonight here Dr. Charles Dumais, or as we know him, Chip. And Chip, why don't you just let everybody know who's here with you?
Sure. Good evening. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here this evening and talk about the Amity budget. Director of Finance and Administration, Jack Levine. Assistant Director of Finance and Administration, Carrie Loomis. And our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Marie McCann. So here joining us today. Yeah, would you please? Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Of course, this is going to be Jack Levine's final
I
meeting
know.
with us. He's leaving.
Thank you, Jack.
I think we all here wish him well.
Thank you.
Yes, we do.
So the document that Jack just handed out is something to take and look over. I think what we've tried to do, actually, the team at Amity over the last year has really worked hard to make sure that we do a couple of things. One is to improve the documentation that we're sending out to the towns. This not only includes the financials, which are the back half of this, but a comprehensive explanation of where some of the decisions were made, how some of the decisions were made, and the justifications for some of the things that you'll find in here, as well as a history of some of the items. So some of the changes that we've made over the past year that I think are significant in terms of our trying to be as transparent and clear as possible. One of them is, and it might seem simple, but I think it's significant, we've changed all of our comparisons to the same number of years. So everything in here is based on the last 5 years. And the reason I say that is that we had things that we had 8 years or 10 years or 5 years. And I think that that leads to the opportunity to go, well, why is it 8 years? Is it 8 years because 8 years looks better than 5 years? So we've gone to something that's trying to be consistent. And so in doing that, it was to pick a number that might best represent some of our recent history. The other thing is that the budget itself represents a piece that we've tried to separate out the risks that are associated with budgeting. There are choice elements in a school budget. Whether we decide to get a new desk or not get a new desk, that's a choice element. The risk elements are the pieces that we have less control over or no control over. Healthcare. We don't really have any control over some of those items. We don't have control over who's going to resign or retire. So those are some elements where we make a number of educated assumptions and try to figure out what's best based on some of our recent history. So saying that, we have prepared a presentation, and I will probably go through some parts of it relatively quickly because I want to respect the time that we have here tonight and leave some opportunity for questions if you have them. So as I get into this,
With the lights, yeah.
oh yeah.
Oh, we got a new light switch. Nice.
Is it on off?
Yeah, it's a real light switch. We have a real light switch.
You can now work it.
Wow. Look at that.
Maybe. All the decisions that we make at the district, including our budgetary decisions, come back to the district mission statement to enable every Amity student to become a lifelong learner and a literate, caring, creative, and effective world citizen. Something that has not changed, that as I would call timeless. If we were to make any change to that, it would be to add after lifelong, life-wide. I think what's happened is that the school experience has changed, and we're expecting that learning to come from everywhere and not just at school. The Board of Education, of course, is made up of representatives from each of our 3 member towns, and we'd like to welcome Robin Burke, our newest Woodbridge member. Amity, as a regional school district, has a finance committee. The finance committee is made up of 3 representatives from the Amity Board of Education and a representative from each of the boards of finance. Thank you very much, Matt, for serving such a long time on the finance committee of Amity. The board and district goals, these are in the document and you can look through them. The goals themselves have stayed relatively consistent over time. They're really about, hey, do a better job with learning and teaching and curriculum and assessment, and do a better job with our finances and facilities and the efficient ways in which we do our work. The bullet points beneath are some of the specifics that we do each year. And I'll say that one of the things that we're changing our focus on is increasing the level of engagement for students. And when I say the word engagement, there are certainly a lot of different definitions that people have. And it's not just paying attention in class. It's finding things that will
keep kids interested in their education. And so it's personalizing that experience, having educational standards and giving kids opportunities to meet them on their own somehow, instead of creating all of those experiences for them and expecting all of them to learn the same from it. Part of our presentation has always been to give some context of what's going on in Amity, and there are some pretty amazing things. There are advanced placement exams that are given all over the world, and each year the College Board recognizes schools who not only have great achievement in the advanced placement, but have increased opportunities for students. Generally, when you have more students take it because you're encouraging kids to take the AP exam or take the courses, you would expect your scores to decrease because the kids who are already doing really well will be taking it. Our scores went up, and so did our participation. So we're recognized as one of approximately 50 schools in North America by the College Board, by this distinction. Whether you agree with some of the mechanisms that are used to determine the America's top high schools, it's always good to be on whatever list, as long as you're near the top. So there are a couple lists where we happen to be on the top. An undeniable piece here is the third item. We have a 2016 Intel Science Talent Search finalist. Finalist means one of fewer than 20 students in the country who've been recognized for their science research work, and will be traveling to Washington shortly. So it's amazing. Hopefully she'll be a winner. So, in addition to that, one of the pieces that is important for us and appears in those goals is leadership development. And when you look at the bottom thing on the list, which says National Professional Presentation, when somebody on our staff presents at a national conference, it says a lot about the work that's done here and their contribution to professional development. So we're very, very proud of that. When we talk about DERG B, we're talking about comparing Amity to 19 other towns or regions in the state that include Guilford, Madison, Trumbull, Fairfield, Newtown is in there, New Fairfield, Glastonbury, and some others, just to give you some idea. The graduation rate continues to increase. There's a lot of work in the state of Connecticut and across the country to increase graduation rates, and Amity is meeting that challenge. The graph here, the vertical dashed lines show that spread in our DERG. So you notice that in the last year, 2014, where we had data there for the DERG, that we're above the DERG average, which is the green line, and we're moving towards the top of the DERG. All good things.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you think about being compared within a DERG as opposed to all schools or to DERG A?
Yeah.
Is that, do you think that's a good
I think
approach,
that as with any other comparison, absolutes are complicated and difficult, but I do think that the resources that are available to schools that do have an impact on what opportunities kids have, and comparing across one or two DERGs is probably pretty safe. I think that, and by the way, the state goes from A to I. A is your 10 or so highly affluent school districts, and I is your major large cities.
Thank you.
So, yeah. SAT scores, and this is actually very interesting. The SAT has changed, and the test that's given to juniors, which used to be capped, which used to capped is given to sophomores. Well, recently the SBA, the Smarter Balanced Assessment, was given to 11th graders, and this coming year, actually in 2 weeks or so, the SAT will be given to all juniors in the state of Connecticut. So our SAT performance is above the DERG average. Capped, and the missing data on the right-hand side is because capped in the areas of math, reading, and writing, it no longer exists, only exists in science. And again, those vertical bars show the extent in the DERG. We do well compared to our peers, and our student performance continues to be very, very good, especially in science there. The CMT is the middle school level of that test, and again, the math, reading, and writing have been discontinued in lieu of the Smarter Balanced Assessment. The Amity is committed to athletics and academics and the arts, the 3 A's. And so we just did some of the academic pieces. The athletic piece, actually I think the indoor boys track and field just took the SCC, I read in the paper this morning. But in addition to our teams and our coaches and our athletes as individuals being recognized on local, state, and national level, professional development goes towards our athletic department as well. And our director of athletics was just received his national certification for athletic administration. The arts, our play last year was Tarzan. This year it's Into the Woods. But in addition to theater, the students in music and art and even writing are performing very well across the state and the nation. We like to encourage all of our students. Actually, we don't have to encourage them. I think that most of this they bring from home and community. Their commitment to the community is overwhelming. And each year there are some things on this list that are constant, and each year there are some things on this list that respond to the current world situation. And Water for South Sudan is one of the newest ones that's there. I would participate in the St. Baldrick's Foundation, but I don't have much to give when it comes time to shave heads. So.
What's Best Buddies?
But Best Buddies is a partner program that pairs regular education students with special education students. Beyond that student work, the operation of a district takes the time and effort that goes into making sure that our services for students and our curriculum and our facilities are top-notch are reflected in this work here. We do have a large participation in unified sports, which is the special education sports component. We've done a significant amount of work in trying to coordinate curriculum and instruction and some other services across the 4 districts, the 3-member towns and Amity. And some of those things are going to do wonderful things for kids. One of them is the implementation of STAR, which is the second to the last item on that list. STAR is what we would call a universal assessment. So it's an assessment that every student takes. And it's in English language arts and math. And what it does is it allows us to identify areas where students need assistance or help in instruction. And right now, Bethany, Orange, Woodbridge, and Amity are using the STAR assessment. So when kids transfer from 6th into 7th grade, we'll have some really valuable information on where they stand academically. We've also started Parent University. We actually stole that from Woodbridge, so thank you very much, Dr. Stella. And it's our effort to pick critical topics and make sure that we're giving our community an opportunity to learn about what's going on in school. Whether it's the new SAT or how to interpret STAR information or student anxiety and mental health. We talk a lot about maximizing cost savings and efficiencies, but Amity has actually won a national award for it. So we're very, very excited. The 6 consecutive clean audits with no recommendations to improve financial operations. And each year that it increases really adds to the strength of our financial program. It's the auditors come back and literally have no recommendations to improve financial operations.
Thank you, Jack.
Yes. Our facilities team, for the second year in a row, we did host the Woodbridge Summer Camp, which went extremely well. We were very, very happy with that. And in addition to putting a little bit of stress on our team, that it was the right amount of stress to have the team take a look at the work that they do and see if they could do the work differently. And we've found some ways in which we can get through the summer in a way that's highly productive. So it was a valuable experience for us.
Thank you for being collaborative.
Our pleasure. So, especially since I got to be a judge during the food wars there.
That's great.
So, yes. Yeah. Orange Middle School has been converted to natural gas. and that was part of the microgrid and fuel cell project agreement here at the main campus of the high school. Retro commissioning, we just did a study that actually came back, and we're using this to do what we said we would do. There are some things that at the end of the year, surplus and fund balance has always been something that's been talked about. And one of the things that we've done is we've started conversations very early about what we would use money at the end of the year for should it exist in the budget. And most of those are high priority facilities items where that money has gone to improving the facilities across the district. And in this case, in order to support that work, we've actually commissioned a study to see where we need to service our HVAC equipment. We also have one of our facilities personnel who's green certified now. In technology, we're looking for ways that not only can we get rid of some of our desktop work and instead bring it into the cloud and onto servers in the district, even with desktop applications. The airwave piece that's in here, and some of these things may sound foreign, as we expand opportunities for visitors to the school, including students, to use the wireless, the airwave allows us to control some of the things that they do over the wireless because they log in with their accounts. So during testing, students can still have access to wireless but can't have access to their cameras on their phones. It's quite an innovative product. And the last piece on there that we're researching right now is the bring your own device or one-to-one. They're two very different programs about how we have technology implemented in the schools. And that's something that our technology team and educators are researching. That potentially could have some financial impact on how we go about doing this. So it's an important process. Over the years, the Amity budget has been anywhere from 0.47% to 3.53%. The black line across is the average over the last 5 years. Interesting, we're going to talk a little bit later about the changes in enrollment, and as the changes in enrollment have happened, one of the things that always comes up is, hey, when enrollment changes, if enrollment decreases, shouldn't staffing decrease? And although there's not a linear relationship between the two, if you lose 20 students, you should lose one teacher because it's not the right way to go about doing it. And I'd be more than glad to talk about how scheduling is done. And so we're probably better off looking at class size if we're going to do that. If you take a look at the first column, you'll see that over that last 5 years, there's been a net change in certified staff of 7, a decrease in 7. And I think that is consistent with our change in enrollment. You do notice that there's an increase in classified FTE. Classified FTE are non-certified staff that generally would fall in this group as far as who's been hired. You take a look at special education at 6.3. Those are paraprofessionals who are working with students. And total FTE over those years is an increase of 2.3. FTE stands for full-time equivalent. So if we hire 2 half-time people, that's 1 FTE. So. Getting back to the fund balance, I've been searching for a good analogy to explain the fund balance, and we tweak it each time. As a regional district, there is no negative. We cannot go into deficit. If we do, we have to ask the towns for money, and so having 0 as the bottom is probably not a great idea. It certainly is a good aim, but if we ended the year with $1, that would be wonderful. If we ended with minus $1, that would not be so good. So in terms of planning that trip, we're planning a year ahead of time, even more than that, 18 months ahead of time for the most part. And as we go through the trip, along the way, we find shorter routes, we find easier things to do, the wind's at our back, the wind's not at our back, and pieces change along the way. So our goal is, we plan as though we're going to be on empty at the end, but we absolutely would like to do everything that we can not to be at empty, to be somewhere just above empty. And so I'm not embarrassed or apologetic, I guess, about having a fund balance. I think that it's more of a positive thing than not having to be in a deficit. And it's more about the conversations that go along with how we're going to address that. And we have addressed that. One of the elements of the fund balance that you'll see in here, well, these are the sources. I'll get to that in a second. The sources generally come from what we do with financial management, managing the bidding process, or healthcare and some other items. There is special education that's in here, and special education is that yellow item, and it's the one that can vary the largest from year to year. And the last one is unforeseen. So when things happen that an air handler fails or something else, the pieces that we cannot predict, those are some of the unforeseen. So you'll see that the percentages between the categories vary dramatically each year. If you're wondering why there's one bar graph in there, it's because there's actually a negative number. Negative numbers on pie charts just don't work.
What's the 69% of the unforeseen in 2015?
Unforeseen in 2015?
That's really high compared
Do you
to.
recall, Jack?
I'll look it up.
If I'm not mistaken, a large portion of that was, is that the 385 that went towards the
Those,
Fuel
that's
cell?
uses or sources?
Sources?
Sources, okay. Sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head.
It just seems like a very different mix in 2015 compared to some of the other years. That's what it is.
13, 24, 29, and 16.
I think it was special. Oh, that's
No.
special ed. This is
Well, we'll have Jack look it up, and I'll proceed. And as he comes up, we'll see if he gets it.
Thank you.
Yeah. That average over the last 5 years works out to be this, where you see about half of that turns out to be associated with special ed, which again Woodbridge is experiencing right now. And $200,000 is easily one student. What percentage did that represent of the overall budget? Anywhere from 1.4 to 3.2% of the overall budget. Over the 5-year average, just about 2.3%. Where has it gone? And this is one of the pieces where has it gone, we've changed our philosophy a little bit. So what you'll see is that there are 3 major areas. Something that's a major non-budgeted item, which might be, again, the air handler or part of the fuel cell or some other element that we didn't anticipate during budget time that might happen. Another one is the dark blue, which is returned to the member towns. And the piece that's returned to the member towns has varied. Last year was a big chunk. The year before was a very small chunk. And then the gray area, which is money that in the past has been advanced to the next year's budget. So in the past, some of that money from the fund balance has been put into the following year's budget. And what that does is, of course, adjusts the town's allocations. One of the issues with this is that average daily membership is measured on October 1st, and each year the towns are assessed in terms of the budget based on that average daily membership. When money is advanced to the next year, it's returned, if it's returned, or used based on that average daily membership in that year. So it's a little bit different. And one of the things that we did, and we heard last year during this process, was, hey, it'd be nice if we could do 2 things. One is even out some of the differences between the actual budget and the allocation for towns, which we can do a little bit unless the population changes, which for Woodbridge it did this year. That's the biggest issue here tonight, is that the population for Woodbridge changed. While Woodbridge went up, the contribution from the other towns went down, and it's very significant when you take a look at the town allocations. But we can help by not advancing money into the next year's budget. So we cut it down last year, and moving into next year's budget, we put nothing. Our plan is to not advance money from the previous year into the following year. If you take a look at what that fund balance has done here, the 36% that's been given back over the last 5 years to the towns, the 27% that's been advanced to the next budget, turns into about 60% that has been returned to the towns, or that benefits the taxpayers, I should say. Jack, did you get something?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I believe it's the medical and dental insurance was down. It was like 400,000, 450,000, and that. We actually at one point one of the things we discussed the year before, putting a big amount of the surplus or fund balance in there, and it turned out that they were greatly down. The other thing was turnover savings. We had I think we had 17 people retire or resign when we were figuring around 5-ish or something like 5, I think. I don't remember exactly. So off the top of my head, I think that those are definitely the big items.
Okay, thank you.
Specifically, if you take a look at the amounts here in terms of what has been assigned to the next budget, return to member towns, and what we've done is we've pulled out some of the bigger pieces of what those unforeseen expenses were. One is facilities and snow, the self-insurance, and some financial elements that we needed to pay for. But those are the largest chunks of what we've used the facilities money for. Resulting in about 63% reducing taxpayer burden. The budget process starts early in the school year, September, August, around that area. And the significant change that we've made over the last 2 years is that all the decisions that we're making here, it's a common practice for the superintendent to meet individually with department heads and then make some decisions on the budget. We meet as a group so that everybody understands how their piece of the budget fits and doesn't fit in other areas of the budget. And it's allowed us to realize a significant amount of savings in terms of overlap between schools and other efficiencies. What we'll do after, now, normally the Board of Education would have had the opportunity to vote on this budget, but we got snowed out. So we're meeting in a week or two. I will go out to each of the towns, and after each of those towns, the Amity Finance Committee and the Board of Education will have an opportunity again. Last year, another thing that we've done is we don't set the budget in January, and then that's what we actually present to the voters in May. This is a dynamic process, and when opportunities arise during that time, which they do right now, healthcare changes month to month, and we try to do our best to take advantage of any savings that we might incur during that process, or if there are changes in staffing, contractual issues. So I anticipate some changes in this budget as we move forward. The book. So you have the book. If you have suggestions on information that would make or this better, enhance our communication to the communities, please, at any time during this process or after it, please let me know. Here's a list of the meetings that we'll be going to. And the only one that's changed is the Amity Board of Education on February 8th has been changed to the 29th. The Amity Finance Committee actually, I think, meets on the 23rd next week. We've extended the time of that meeting. Normally the Finance Committee meetings start at 5:30, end at 6:30. We put it on a night that doesn't have an end, or it has less of a fixed end to allow for more conversation. This year's budget represents a combination of salaries and benefits, purchase services and debt, supplies and equipment. You'll notice, of course, just like any other school budget, the largest portion of it is salaries. In terms of what the components of the increase look like, these are the largest pieces of the budget. So your largest pieces come from salaries, benefits, and special education. We're presenting to you a slideshow that matches this document at this time, but we're ready to change the document already. Bethany actually, all the districts share bus routes. And because there are shared bus routes, there's an agreement on how the bus routes will be paid for. Bethany has proposed in their budget to cut a bus. That impacts our budget because we still have to maintain buses. But we have an agreement now with Bethany where they will pay for the additional Amity bus directly to the bus drivers. So that $51,000 of the graph can come out. So that'll be one of the changes that'll be happening. So if you take the other yellow components, those account for about 95% of the increase in the Amity budget. Salaries, benefits, and special education, tuition, and transportation. Same graph, just percentages. What are we talking about in terms of staffing? We do recognize that there are some areas where we might be able to make some adjustments to staffing, so we do have one unidentified teaching position that we will be cutting. And what we are going to do is we are planning on adding a maintenance position. From a financial perspective, the cost of the maintenance position is less than the cost of contracting the maintenance work that this person would do. The medical reserve, one of the pieces we've done with the medical reserve is we heard in the last budget process that keeping the medical reserve at 20% is something that some people thought would be favorable. I'll be honest with you, 20% does not help me sleep at night. I would prefer that it were higher, but we're working hard to keep it at 20%, and that's how we plan our budget. So if knowing what we anticipate our balance to be at the end of this year and what it'll be next year, that's how we create our budget, so that the budget reflects a 20% reserve in our claims. We do have some new equipment on the list. Some of it is replacement equipment like custodians equipment, the drinking fountains, security cameras, and we are trying to improve and increase the safety and security that we create in the environment that we offer for students here. And that includes not only equipment like cameras, but also some of the access systems that are very familiar to most of the people who have ever been in one of the elementary schools. Building improvements across all of the schools and district office. One of the items on this list that's not just needs to be updated or repaired is the last item, which is the facilities contingency. One of the pieces that we've been asked about is, hey, look, at the end of each year, when you have these facilities items that fall under an emergency or a required piece that we need to spend on, why don't we just plan for it? And so this contingency is reflecting that request that we've gotten to, hey, plan for it. So we put in $100,000 that would go towards paying for any of these, or parts of these items, depending what they are as we move through the year. Site improvements. Oh boy, the last week didn't help with asphalt repair, I tell you that. So, the resodding the crown of the football field is an annual piece that's required for us to maintain the field and maximize its usage. So, Amity does carry some debt. Our debt is decreasing. You can see in the last column the principal and interest over the next 10 years or so. One of the things that we will be presenting, as I said, we were asked to try and eliminate some of that variation that happens from year to year. So what you won't see in this budget is $500,000 in facilities expense this year and zero the next year, and then move 7 projects back years, and then $500,000 in tech funding, and then none the next year, and then $500,000. We're trying to present a plan that represents even and level representation of what's needed. All of our departments have been asked to plan 3 to 5 years out, and we are proposing a bonding that would follow this year and probably have a referendum in the fall that would address lots of those large projects. Capital items shouldn't be part of an operating budget, and so we've pulled them out. And we'll talk more about that after budget time. I mentioned some of the risks. State grants vary each year, and we make predictions based on what they were the year before. The state budget does not help in terms of that, but I think that our team has been pretty good at estimating where we're going to be. Staff turnover and vacancy savings, those are pieces that we do our best, but as Jack was just saying, when you have 17 in 1 year and you plan for 5, and this year we have 5 retirements as of right now, and I don't know how many resignations or we'll have. But we try our best to plan for those vacancy savings. Medical and dental insurance. One of the pieces that comes under medical and dental insurance that I like to mention is the OPEB trust. The OPEB trust has in the past been an area where, well, do we fund it and do we not fund it? It's our commitment to our future benefits for employees. And one of the items that has changed is in accounting, that it's now reported as the same way that pension is reported. So in terms of financial ratings, it would be the advantage to put funding into the OPEB trust. The second piece is that as we take on greater risk, in trying to assess what our medical expenses are going to be, and we reduce that reserve to 20%, it would be beneficial to have the OPEB trust funded so that we could take advantage of that if we needed to. Special education tuition and transportation, you're already very aware of that. Snow removal. We've gotten slammed in a couple of years so far. Knock on wood, this year has been all right. And the cost of natural gas. We're making predictions on some of the savings that we'll make from the fuel cell project in some of our natural gas expenses. Enrollment projections, and I believe these are also in the report. There are a couple of things here. One of them is that there are a number of lines on this graph. If you take a look at the very, very top one, you'll see that there are three. There's the green, the blue, and the red. The green is a couple of years ago, the NESDEC predictions for Amity. Actually, that's everybody. That's K-12. You notice the blue line was last year, and the red line is this year. So what they thought was going to produce this dramatic decrease has changed, and we're pretty much leveling off as a 3-town district. To try to accommodate this is a little bit difficult when you take a look at all the things that go in the prediction. But one of the things that we do is we do what I would call persistence ratings, where you take a look at the kids, you advance them to next year, you find some 5 or 10 year average over how many you lose or how many you gain. And if you take a look at the middle of this slide, it's not meant for you to absorb all the information, but the key is that over the middle school and the high school, the enrollment stays relatively consistent over the next 5 years. Don't worry about that. The average daily membership. Bethany's average daily membership has decreased. Orange's average daily membership has decreased. Woodbridge has seen just over a 1% increase in the average daily membership. What that translates in terms of budget is that not only is Woodbridge's piece of that increase, but when the others decrease, it makes it seem even larger.
It's not seem, it is.
It is. It is. So if you take a look at this, you'll see that the budget that we're presenting is actually not a 269. The document, is this document 287 or 269?
That's the town allocations.
Okay. Town allocations, okay. Bethany's increase with this budget is just over 1%. Orange is just under 2%, and Woodbridge is at 6.97 over what it was last year, or an increase of about $941,000. As I did say, we are planning for 3 to 5 year plans as we move forward. So putting the facilities bonding in there, our facilities committee has met and taken a look at what items can be put into that. One plan for 2016-17 hopefully, and one plan for 2019-2020. And that's the end.
What are those improvements?
Some of the improvements would include, and they are outlined in here. The bonding items, the first part is located on, well actually, interesting thing about the bond. This is a good time for a bond for Amity. If you take a look in this document on page 67, I believe, if that's the same as yours.
Yep.
Okay, 67 has the pro forma estimated debt service.
Yep.
So what you'll see is that taking on this bond does not increase our debt. There's 1 year in which there's a little bit of a bump, but it continues to go down. If you take a look at page 34. Page 34 has a box at the top that starts with the superintendent of schools.
Yep.
Okay. You'll notice that there are descriptions here of each of the large items that we are suggesting be part of that first bonding item. So HVAC upgrades at the Bethany campus, the more HVAC or air conditioning at the high school. The consumer science room is what we would call the culinary room. Air handler replacement at the high school, parking lot replacement, install a garage bay. If you've driven behind the high school and you've seen the storage trailers, one of the efforts is to try to move some of that storage. The other piece is that our maintainer does not have a workshop. So in order to allow him to do better and more work, he essentially needs a place to work. So this would be installing the extra bay in the garage and the tennis courts. You'd be surprised at how tennis court technology has changed. If I'm not mistaken, the recent estimates that we received on the work that would be done carries a very long guarantee as far as the work that's there. So we're excited about not having to do this repeatedly.
So what is your anticipated gas gauge for the end of this year? Where do you feel you might end up?
This year currently, and the other thing is that, and we do report that out in all of the monthly reports that we give, just so that everybody can be updated.
I understand.
And so I think that right now, if I were to say that we're at about a $400,000 dollar surplus at this point.
It would, I think it'd be around that.
Around that, and that is with a couple of the anticipated expenses that we've put into. What's the largest one that we're looking for this
Well,
summer?
350,000 for one of the bond, possibly one more of the bond, and then one.
Yeah. One of the things that, in terms of looking at the bond, and that would actually decrease. One of the items in the bond runs about $380,000 or so, and one of the considerations that we're putting forward is to pull it out of the bond and use current budget money to pay for that project, so that the project gets done and additional interest isn't added to the expense for taxpayers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that we'll put before the Amity Finance Committee.
Okay. I mean, you mentioned that you have a change in terms of your philosophy about what to do with your surplus at the end of the year. And obviously this is a huge hit for Woodbridge financially. I mean, it's almost $1 million. And it's quite a challenge for us to make that up. And you have returned dollars in the past, but where does this change in philosophy come from about kind of keeping this to do other work?
And it's not so much, the change in philosophy is not what to do with the money. That's a decision of the Finance Committee and the Board of Education.
Mm-hmm.
The recommendations are coming earlier, so that there can be greater discussion about some of the items that have been put forward, greater opportunity to examine them before an August decision needs to be made, and some anticipation of, can this be done in the context of what the towns need? So it's not so much a philosophy of what to do with the money, it's a philosophy of how to address the process. And so earlier, more frequent communication, and we're trying to get out our ideas in a timely fashion so that people can examine them. So,
okay. I guess I would ask if we could look at, since you're looking over the last 5 years, what have been those percentage increases or decreases per town? And how does that translate into dollars? Not as an average, but each year. So what has been done to help alleviate this spike?
And this is one where we did prepare the document, and what I'll do is I'll send copies over to Matt.
If you could, that would be really helpful.
We had a question as to, well, as the allocations changed, how have the allocations changed over the years?
Correct.
We have that document.
Okay.
Jack prepared something that gives how the average daily membership has changed, how it's related to the percentage change in the budget, and what the contributions from each town have been.
Right.
And what you'll see is that, and I think that, Woodbridge, because of the enrollment this year, if you look back a year or two, Bethany had a change in enrollment that it was just the same. They were the spike, and
And I think that would help just to kind of see that.
We'd be glad to share it.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
And don't think that you can't ask questions beyond tonight. We really work hard to respond to what your needs are, and whether it's changing this document or presenting some information. So
Sure.
make sure.
I do have one other question, and it has to do with any changes in curriculum that would be of interest for us to know and understand about between what's going on this year and what you're proposing for next year.
There are every year there are new course proposals,
Okay.
And I think that one of the areas that we have some of more course proposals than not are in the English language arts, if I'm not mistaken. Something like graphic novel, which and we didn't so it's kind of neat.
Okay.
But the exciting work that's happening in curriculum is in the coordination that's happening between the 4 districts. And it truly is exciting, to the point where we just had conversations within the last day or two about doing an assessment of how we teach math across the grades K through essentially 8.
Okay.
The challenge for Amity really is that all the kids will graduate from Amity. They're all Amity students right now. Even in kindergarten, they're Amity students right now.
Yeah.
Except they don't go to school at Amity. They go to 3 different elementary schools. And everybody wants to do what's best for their kids. And it shouldn't necessarily all be the same, but we're trying to find the elements that can be the same and can be reinforced so that when they get to 7th and 8th grade, we can maximize the experience that they have there. So, and that just means working better together with the sending districts.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, just a quick thing to say thank you.
thank
I know
you.
I'll see you a few
Yeah,
more
see,
months.
I'll see you Tuesday.
Jack, you've been
Next time if you see
absolutely
me, I hope to have a
exceptional. Okay.
hat
You'll have
on.
your hat on and your right?
It was very good to,
Thank you for all your years of service, Jack.
thank
Really.
you very much.
This is terrific.
It's my pleasure, believe me.
You got us out of a very big hole.
I wasn't the only one. And,
I
Terry
understand.
Loomis,
Uh-huh.
actually made me look good, so, yes, thank you.
Well, thank you, Terry, too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, we have 2 funding requests. The first one is, I think we heard about this at the budget presentation. And it's, the fire hydrants, the water in the fire hydrants, that they assess a different amount. So I'm going to move acceptance of request for funding 1516-09 in the amount of $11,288.
I'll second it.
Okay, you all remember this one?
I have a question though about
Sure.
this. So included in this is the estimated bill on 7/1/16. That's a new fiscal year,
It's
correct?
for water that they use in the last quarter.
But when does it get paid?
It gets paid with encumbered funds from
So we'd
this
have to
year.
encumber the
And-
funds from
and
this
the-
year to pay that expense.
Correct.
Okay, that's what we normally do?
Yes, because if you notice,
Yeah, I'm looking at the chart.
the
Yeah.
public fire, it says funded from FY15, so they paid that in July of 2015 with 14-15 funds.
I see. Okay,
All right?
Yep.
$36,000.
Yeah.
Anything else on that?
okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And next is, it's a line item transfer. If you recall, we had a water bill that, I don't know, if something broke or something didn't work or whatever. And we've been fighting with our former golf operator
Yeah.
I'm assuming Jerry Weiner must have settled this, so I'm gonna move acceptance of line item transfer. This is going from golf fees to water. I'm gonna move acceptance of line item transfer 1516-10 in the amount of $43,000.
Second.
Any discussion on
It's
this?
going back prior to Casper?
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, this was when
This is with what's the
MDM.
name?
Yep.
MDM.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Approval of minutes. Okay. First minutes we have are the two capital budget presentations, and I'll move acceptance of the minutes of December 1st as presented.
Second.
Any discussion or corrections? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. I'll also move acceptance of the minutes of the December 3rd meeting as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And finally, our regular January meeting, January 21st. I'll move acceptance of the minutes of the January 21st meeting.
Second.
Any discussion on these? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Abstain. Okay, good. All right, the only thing we have left is liaison reports. Amity got snowed out, so we're meeting Tuesday night, so I have nothing on Amity. Paul, do you have anything?
Park Commission got snowed out.
Karen?
I went to Human Services.
Okay.
And I stayed for an hour and there wasn't really anything particular to report, but there's a volunteer tea on April 28th and a food demonstration on March 16th, but other than that, they're just working on their budget and trying to get creative programming. All's well at Human Services.
Okay. I know you missed, right?
I was in New Orleans.
Yeah, New Orleans. Trying to get home.
Trying to get home.
Sandy.
Okay, the Library Commission meeting did get canceled, but they did have a special meeting so that they could get approval for a new Children's Services Assistant, Faith Miller, and a new young adult librarian, Kyle Litcher, and both of those were approved by the commission, and I believe they went to Tony. And I guess we'll go to the Personnel Committee for approval. So they're happy about that. And the Board of Ed did meet, the Finance Committee. And as I indicated, their deficit did go up by about $4,000 and is now $222,500. I think as Matt explained, the actual special education deficit is larger than that number, but they have been able to identify other savings in their budget, which gives us the $222,000.
But wasn't that forecasted? Had they?
Yeah.
Not at the beginning of the year.
Not at the beginning of the
Soon
year.
thereafter.
So what happens is that as new children join the district,
So they're picking up,
correct.
during the year, we picked up some additional.
That's absolutely correct. And it's, again, our relationship with them is that they try to base their budget based on what they know, and knowing that if things change, they will be very transparent, come to us and let us know. So this is the situation right now. Al will return to his position, but from a home office for a while. But I think that Dr. Stella is very happy about, getting him really re-engaged. So the consultant they were using is no longer part of the equation. Back to special ed, it is still active at this point. So we will have to keep watching this for the remainder of the year. They may need to add another teaching assistant. And there are discussions about collaborating with Bethany and Orange to kind of pool together the special education needs students who cannot be taught in the regular classroom. But that really would take a lot of coordination to be able to make that happen. But it is being discussed. The state did come in to look at the cafeteria, and they were very complimentary of Mrs. Roddy, saying she's doing a great job. It's one of the only cafeterias that's actually breaking even or making a little bit of money, and they were really impressed with it, so I thought I would mention that. It's possible that there will be a technology grant for $17,000 that will be used for the infrastructure and offset the capital budget request for technology. They don't have the official letter yet. And that's it.
Okay. Just a reminder, we'll be getting a package with the Board of Selectmen's recommendations. Look at it, think
Did
about
you say
it.
the recommendation was a 5% increase?
Right now, if we stop where they're at, it's a 5% tax increase. So,
That's not gonna happen.
no, I can't
Yeah.
tell you.
I know. But
It's
it means
gonna-
we're going to have to make some
Really
really
difficult
difficult decisions.
Well, on the other hand, they still continue to want to spend money on programs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
Right.
and no one wants to say, it's not about zero balance budget. It's about saying there
We
aren't
can't
gonna be
afford
any increases, this is what we can afford to do.
I asked
We just
Tony.
can't do enough.
I asked Tony to put a list together of items he thinks,
Mhm.
and I think most of the departments would probably be more, rather than us nitpicking their budgets, line item by line item, I think they would prefer for us to say, try and cut this much from your budget and let them decide what they want to do with it, but we've got to come up with some,
Yeah.
we've got to
I mean,
come up with some
the hit
cuts.
from Amity
It's
is
gonna be
huge.
tough. It
Is
It is.
huge.
For 7 students.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
huge, that's $1 million, that's huge.
Yes. Yes.
I mean,
But
that's-
as Chip was saying though, last year and the year before, Bethany had the same situation.
Right.
They got
And that's why I
clobbered.
was asking for
And
the
ours has
5
been getting
years
hit
to
every
look
year.
at
This is the first year,
Yeah.
in all the years I've been there, where
Right.
there's a drop in the other schools and,
But
and ours went
significant
up.
for both of them.
Yes, yes.
Significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
when you get it, look it over, take a long, hard look at it and come up with whatever ideas you think we can consider, because I don't see how we can go with a 5% increase.
Well, I think it's looking at capital budget, but
Yeah.
it's also looking at maybe programmatically what our recommendations would be, even
Yeah.
though we give it back to
Yeah.
the departments and say, here's a number for you, whether it's a percentage or an actual dollar amount. I think we have to kind of know.
And that doesn't include any of the other things people are talking about. I mean,
Oh,
let's
no.
$50,000 more for the pool.
For the pool, that's not in there, right?
I don't know,
Right.
I mean, we're talking about the country club, but, I mean, you know, how about a needs assessment that says, you know, do we need 43,000 more square feet? Okay,
Correct.
I mean,
This is why I keep
This,
asking.
this swimming pool thing, it just came to light. I heard about it the other day. My biggest question is, there were a lot of concerns about that they're not controlling members getting in. How do you control it when anybody in the town can walk in and go swimming? I mean,
Well, it's
it's
basically
gonna be-
open to anybody.
Yeah.
then.
But I mean,
That's what it is.
yeah, exactly.
It's
control
open
it.
to
We have
anybody.
Control like you control it. We have a public pool. We,
Yeah.
you know, we have a pool at Beecher School. We just spent a couple $1 million on
Yeah.
upgrading. All right, and that's open to all the taxpayers in town of Woodbury.
But I think as we look at programs, we have to look at, are we competing as the town with
Yeah.
other programs that already exist?
Exists.
And that maybe we should not continue to support those. We cannot afford to continue to support those. Or they're on hiatus for a year or two. I think this is, while I'm all for giving it back to the departments, I do think there has to be a philosophy about where we're looking to reduce our expenses. We have made education a priority, and we don't have the ability to nitpick the Amity budget, just as we can't really nitpick the Beecher
I mean,
budget.
there's no way we could say on the Amity budget, you know, we could say, okay, look, guys, you got to take $450,000 out of that.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
Right,
So
right.
there's nothing we can do about that $1 million. That's a definite.
That is correct, and I guess that's what I'm saying, so
Yeah,
that
I hear you.
in order to cover that, we have to have some very clear counter proposals to that. And it can't just be everybody cut, 5%.
No.
I don't think that gets us where we need to
And
go.
it's also not fair that education gets everything they want and everybody else has got to cut their budgets.
True.
It's not fair.
Well,
But that's why I think if you look at it programmatically, you have a better opportunity that we're not cutting you across the board. We're just saying that we cannot fund this year this program.
Matthew, we know, and you've sat on this board 25 years,
29.
no one has ever been denied.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I know, and it's because, it's because of the affluence of the town, okay? No one's ever been denied. So,
I can't.
but at some point in time, okay, the reality is taxes in this town are, what, we're number 7 in the state of Connecticut now. And it is affecting, okay, the lower income houses are selling, the expensive houses are not selling.
No, not at
And
all.
the expensive houses are being devalued, okay?
Mhm.
So it is, it's coming to, it is coming
Mhm.
to roost. And at some point in time, you have to say, hey, look, we have to put on the brakes a little. We just cannot continue to spend. It's okay to say no once in a while. It's okay to say, hey, we have to live within these means, and we're running, and it's a 2.5% increase we can live with. And that's what's fair for the taxpayers.
Right, but that's saying no to something new that's requested, right? That's the no. I mean, the difficult is saying, we've been doing this, but we can no longer afford to make that happen.
So,
Look, our debt
Yeah.
is, we've put on more debt in the last 5 years,
Mhm.
and our debt is very, very high. And again, I think that we really have to look at that. And that's just, we really have to take a hard look at that.
but I really believe it. Tony said this, and I agreed that to get this thing down under 4% is going to be painful.
It's gonna be painful.
Painful. You're going to be cutting seriously, making serious cuts. So, I was hoping we could get under 3%. I think that's impossible. I think it's impossible. Well, I mean, it's not impossible.
Well,
but
It's
yeah.
not impossible.
we're going to have to
It's
start.
just,
Yes.
Listen, once in a while, a little pain is good.
Yeah. So take a hard look when you get it. And,
do you know, Karen, when that will be available?
Not exactly when,
Okay.
but I would hope to have it out to you. We're meeting Wednesday.
Wednesday next week.
Next
no,
Wednesday?
2 weeks.
Right.
We
Not
are
this coming
meeting
Wednesday,
2 weeks,
following
right.
Wednesday.
On Wednesday.
Right.
I would try to push to have it out to you by Friday.
Okay, next Friday, the
Before-
26th. Okay, that would be great, because I think being able
Because
to look
even
at it
though
over the
Board of Selectmen are
weekend.
meeting the 29th, that's too late to get in a packet for you.
Yeah.
Right, right. I think that would be really helpful to have the weekend to look at over it.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
All right.
See you on the 2nd.